So I'll try to repeat anything I said in the meditation. Before we start, I realize I want to read a poem. I have to do it in the beginning because I keep forgetting. This is one that I read at the retreat in January, but after a snowy day, it just seemed worth repeating. Something you can enjoy. Bright Sun After Heavy Snow by Jane Kenyon. The ledge of ice slides from the eaves, piercing the crusted drift. Astonishing how even a little violence eases the mind. In this extreme state of light, everything seems flawed. The streaked pane, the forced bulbs on the sill that refuse to bloom. A wad of dust rolls like a desert weed over the drafty floor. Again, I recall a neighbor's small affront. It rises in my mind like the huge banks of snow along the road. The plow, passing up and down all day, pushes them higher and higher. The shadow of smoke rising from the chimney moves abruptly over the yard. The clothesline rises in the wind. One wooden pin is left, solitary as a finger. It, too, rises and falls. I love how Jane Kenyon, in her typical way, takes just such care with noticing details, the important details around her in a very domestic scene, and with a kind of underlying wit lays them before us, and is very mindful poetry. It's very present poetry. And that sense of irony, she notices not just the beautiful, but the not so beautiful things around her. But by the time she's put it all together, the whole effect is quite lovely. And so reminiscent of a New England day after snow. So may we get some sun tomorrow and you can live this poem. I particularly enjoy the dust floating in the draft across the floor. So let's see what there is to say about enjoyment. I've said quite a bit so far. I'll probably mostly review tonight, just a few things that really occur to me to underline. You know, one of the things I appreciate about enjoyment is that one can actually make a certain kind of effort toward joy. One can put joy into something. And it's a funny kind of effort. It's one that kind of stymies the ego. Actually, how to do this thing, enjoyment. Something has to relax in us. That's what I love about it. Something with the call of enjoyment has to relax. We've talked about this quite a bit, particularly the managerial mind, always relating to life in terms of what needs to get done or all the details. That needs to relax. You know, the future itself, the way we imagine it in any given moment, which is always the present, needs to relax. Our ideas of how things should be, the demands we make on the moment, also need to relax so we can actually enjoy what's here. and uncover what's there really already anyway, when the rest of this sort of dukkha producing mind just sort of relax a bit, we notice the well-being that's here, simple well-being that, at its core, unless some sort of pain of shutdown is preventing it, or some anxiousness in our being is preventing it, at the core, where it feels good to be here. And in some sense, I could use that instruction with the body scan. We could welcome each part of the body with that sense of good to be here. And to let go of the different parts of the mind that tell us it's not good to be here. They're certainly there. I'm not free of them. The complaining mind, the depressive mind, the anxious mind, all of that, they're hovering around, ready to step in and run the show. But we invite them just to stand back and relax. Let our whole being show up in the present, and there's well-being there. And presence itself has an enjoyment to it. And when we practice enjoyment, when we practice putting joy into things, we discover a freedom the heart has in any situation. I am well aware of the parts of my mind that resist that tend to focus on the exterior and see whether it's good or not according to some personal standard, whether it's what I want, and will deny that. And certainly, I certainly see that in my day-to-day life, the parts of the mind that they'll want to paint a grim picture. They show up when it snows too. Not only them, though. There are some that really enjoy it, but I'm afraid today it was so heavy, wet. There's the kind of story we spin of being oppressed by something. That joy somehow is not okay in the situation around us and the conditions we find ourselves in. We believe that story so easily. And so the freedom of this practice of enjoyment lies in discovering that it's not true, that our hearts are not as dependent on external conditions as we believe. That's worth noting. They're not completely independent of external conditions. I'm not saying they are. We're very much conditioned beings, but there's a freedom there. There's a freedom there. Why, just before this class, I was feeling a certain ugh of, oh my God, I'm so tired. I am so beat. I don't know if I want to do this, And then I start doing it. I start doing the meditation, and goodness, it actually feels good. There's well-being there. I actually stayed awake. I don't know that I've nodded off on these Zoom ones. When we used to meet at the Cadogan Center, there would be an occasional time when I would find myself nodding off briefly, leading the meditation. I always wondered if people noticed the particularly long pause. I'd never fall asleep for more than 30 seconds or a minute. It wasn't a long time, but anyway, I stayed awake tonight and I enjoyed this meditation. I hope you did too. I left behind whatever frame of reference my little mind had put around being tired and what I'm capable of and so forth, and just showed up, which was, I think, our last class, showing up, right? It's kind of the same thing. Enjoyment is a continuation of showing up, where you actually show up and find the freedom of heart and the presence that is in any particular moment. Not unlike a Jane Kenyon who sees, in kind of the dirty snow. I always kind of imagine this as a March poem. In March, things get kind of frayed. The winter gets pretty frayed. The mud starts coming out. We're, ready for the spring. The birds start sounding very spring-like. And yet, here we are in New England, and the snowplow is going by, piling the snow higher and higher. And so oftentimes we get these nor'easters in March, and that's just the way it is. But somehow she shows up for the experience and writes a poem, Bright Sun After Heavy Snow. And I hope too in meditation you had just a moment with the instruction to imagine this is your last few breaths. I love that instruction because it really invites the mind to drop its habits of familiarity with things. If these were your last breaths, there would be nothing to be taken for granted about them. One would truly know the miracle of breathing and knowing that you're breathing. One would know the precious gift of life that is in each breath. So I hope you had a moment there. I hope that drops you in a little bit into what's actually true all the time. In a certain way, every breath is our last breath. We are dying every moment. Whatever has just happened is already gone by the time you notice it. Gone into the void of the past. And irretrievable. We have this thing called memory that makes us think it's not lost, but it is truly. So every breath is your dying breath. Every breath is your welcoming breath as the next moment arrives. We live in this place, this home of here and now, where the future is always arriving, unknown, unpredictable, and the past is always taken from our grasp. We can try to hold on to it, but it's useless. The past leaves us. So that space of here and now is wondrous. It can sometimes be frightening when you see this very, very clearly. There can be a kind of a rumble in the gut of, oh my goodness, all those Buddhist teachers were right. There's nothing to hold on to here. Until you have that moment, you may not know it. But that sense, there can be a kind of a ill at easeness with here and now when you see it clearly. But that tends to be passing. It isn't a permanent state. And along with that can be just the state of wonder. just a profound wonder for what's going on here. What's going on in this living? We very rarely question it unless someone's dying or someone's being born. And then it's just right there for us. Like, what is going on here? A new being is coming into the world. Another being is passing out. Where are they now? What were they while they were here that they could just die? All of that comes together. And somewhere in there, remember enjoyment. Remember the possibility of not making it a problem, of relaxing, of surrendering, and letting go.